Another season is upon us. Freshmen arrive wide-eyed with dreams of future glory, while seniors prepare for their last chance at immortality. There are only a handful of these opportunities in a man's life, a handful of chances to distinguish yourself from the rest. It's on these fields where history is made, where legends begin and heroes triumph. Traditions tell the story of what you represent, of those that forge the legacy you uphold. When you come charging out of the tunnel, 100,000 people will be watching your every move. How you respond to that pressure is what defines you. These are the moments that reveal your toughness, your determination, and your pride. The Roughnecks on the Sooner Schooner. Ralphie charging out of the gate. And Chief Osceola planting his spear. The time has come. Your time is now.
You know, there's a lot of shows out there that like to claim that they're a national college football show, but they don't talk about half of the teams that make up major college football. Well, that stigma ends here tonight. We're going to set ourselves apart from the rest because we have a truly electric and, dare I say it, controversial episode here tonight. So this time last week, we talked about what is our post-spring top 25 look like, and that included everybody and their mother. Everyone was involved in the conversation. But this time, we're going to be a little bit G6 centric. We're going to show some love to the G6 here tonight, and then also dive into, as we get close to the start of the season, the games that we're most excited about for week number 0. So, guys, I hope you are excited for it as well. If you are, make sure you go ahead, hit that like button, as well as hit that subscribe button as well. If you do happen to be brand new to the channel as well. And boys, I don't think we should waste too much time here. G6 top 25. And I have to say, we've been talking about this all day today. We've been talking about this throughout the day yesterday as we were enjoying our weekends together. I think the diversity of thought that we truly have, like among this group, it really goes to show that the G6 is truly the chaos aspect of college football that I think people really love and enjoy, which is why it should get more attention than what it normally does.
Good evening to you, Jake. Also, AT, glad to see that you're still breathing in the flesh. glad to see you, my friend. The controversy that Jake prefaced in his open is mainly about AT, so I'm glad he's here to defend himself.
Yeah, had to show up. I'm gonna always ride for my teams here, and the more, we'll get into it. I'm not gonna say too much right now. Just glad to be here talking ball, even if it's controversial. I don't care. It's college football. That's what it's all about. So just glad to be here with the boys, regardless.
I'm glad I'm a part of the most controversial college football programming, though. I'm proud to be a part of it. So let's do it.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolutely electric time here tonight. So joined by my co-host Reed, and then also joined by my boy AT, who is still alive. He is living and breathing. So we're very happy to see him here on the channel as well. So hopefully hit that like button and hit that subscribe button as well. And we talked about it earlier with the diversity of thought. I think it just really goes to show that in this era of NIL and in this era of transfer portal, I don't think fans have properly calibrated just in terms of how much of a swing there is in terms of, what is the best case scenario or worst case scenario, even for the best programs in the country. I mean, even for, a team that maybe we think is going to win a conference championship, like a James Madison, for example. I know James Madison gets a lot of love in the Sun Belt. I mean, that could be a team that, hey, if Sun Belt Billy is not Sun Belt Billy anymore, they could really be disappointing and be a 6-6 and 7-5 team. And that could really resonate around the rest of the country too.
I feel like that has to go for a lot of G6 coaches. I mean, that's where most of these power conference coaches get their start, is at the G6 level, if not lower. So, I mean, we'll talk about, I'm sure, a few programs that are going through coaching changes, even programs that we haven't even previewed before that are coming up from the FCS level, i.e. North Dakota State. So, I mean, it's a complete churning of what we saw last season at the G6 level, and I'm fascinated to see where the collective in our group really thinks about what we really think about the G6, because it's a smorgasbord of, some of the craziest and also the best college football that you will ever watch. So
yeah. It's incredibly tough to rate because, I mean, it's kind of what you were saying, Reed. Like all the coaches that were there last year that made some of these teams good are gone. All the players that made most of these teams good are gone. Because, I mean, it's kind of what the G6 has become. It's become just a feeding ground for the power conferences, and so it's really hard to like even evaluate these teams because it's a lot of players you've never heard of in starting positions, or it's a lot of new guys or people stepping up and that kind of stuff. So incredibly tough to just look at the G6 as a whole and I guess even know what they're going to be capable of. I guarantee you there's going to be a couple teams that we don't even think about right now. They're going to come out of the gate and be a really good program just because we don't know some of the guys that are going to be studs for them. So exciting to see, though. I think it makes it more fun because it's a lot. It's that the G6 is going to be what old college football was: madness, chaos, and what we love about it. So
yeah, and I'm always thinking about really what captures what AT just said. I remember like in the middle of the night, my son woke up because he he needed to eat as part of his night feedings, and I remember like tuning into Sam Houston versus Oregon State like in the middle of the night, 2:30 in the morning, and what I saw was just really a chaotic bad, but a chaotic fun like type of bad. It's like kind of watching like a movie that is kind of a spoof, and you know that the jokes are awful, but it's so awful that it's just hilarious. And you get some of that in there, and really it's just the equivalent of any given Saturday. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look into what we have. A very interesting one that we got going here in terms of the top 25. And here we go. There it is, the G6 post-spring top 25 here on College Football Red Zone. This is what we ended up coming up with as a collective group. Now, it's not just the three of us that voted on it. What did end up happening is we have a couple of people that couldn't make it tonight that did also vote on this top 25. So if you love what you're seeing here in this top 25 poll, please give us free all of the credit. If you don't like what you see, the two of them that are not here right now, make sure you direct all blame over in their direction. So first things first, make sure you I take all the credit. I never take any of the blame. I don't believe in accountability whatsoever. And then another little caveat here as well is that in the event that there was a tie, in terms of number of points that are awarded to each team, I broke it with my own poll. So my top 25 determined, who ended up being ahead of another if they ended up making the top 25 in the first place. So those two caveats out of the way. Again, I take all of the credit. The others will take all of the blame. Let's go ahead and jump into this top 25, shall we? So starting at number one, and this is the one that received the most consensus and the most agreement out of everybody in the room. Boise State at number one. Actually, only one person didn't have Boise State number one, and they ended up ranked number two in the country, like on this person's ballot. So the one thing that we agreed on here tonight collectively, Boise State is the best team in the G5.
You don't want to call out the number two?
Not yet. There's other things I'll call out for this specific person, but we'll get there. But from then on, it just you want to talk about chaos in college football. We had chaos from 2 through 25 after that. So starting at number two, we had UNLV, and from the jump, some interesting takes on UNLV. Most of us had UNLV as a consensus top 4 team. But I know you had a little bit of concerns or a little bit more skepticism. You had them outside the top 5. So very curious to hear what you're thinking about this UNLV team going into 2026.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do personally for me about how high I am on New Mexico. That's the only reason UNLV dropped outside the top 5 is because I'm personally higher on New Mexico. I think New Mexico has everything in front of them to play for. So I'm not saying UNLV isn't going to be competing in the Mountain West. I think New Mexico just has a lot more going for them right now. So I think it basically was a toss up for me. So that's just kind of where UNLV shook out at the end of things for me. It wasn't anything out of particular. I mean, if I had to pluck out something, probably Jackson Arnold versus Alex Orji. I mean, dumpster fire against, the worst project in major power football, excuse me. So I can't even speak. That's how diabolical that both of them have played so far. So there's also a fly that is distracting me. So anyway, yeah, Jackson Arnold versus Alex Orji. Whoever gets the starting nod, I would project it to be Jackson Arnold, but yeah, UNLV does have a lot going for them. It was a toss up between them and New Mexico for me, and I'm personally higher on the Lobos.
I like it.
Yeah, and I can see where you're coming from, particularly with Jackson Arnold. I will say this because I had UNLV as my as a top 5 team myself, and I have him as my favorite to win the Mountain West. If UNLV disappoints, what's likely going to be the reason why they're going to have a disappointing season is because Jackson Arnold just ends up being a bona fide scrub. I mean, we saw this song and dance with him in Oklahoma. We saw this song and dance at Auburn. So, I mean, if it doesn't work out at UNLV, I mean, are we looking at another Malachi Nelson situation? Could it be that horrendous? We'll just have to wait and see. So, I mean, I know you stood out there, but I mean, I could definitely see where you're coming from with UNLV at number 2.
Yeah.
But
I will say with Jackson Arnold, I think Dan Mullen do a great job with him. He's kind of the QB whisperer in college football. Can he win the big game? He struggles winning the big game, and he struggles recruiting. I think that's what Florida. That's obviously what that's why Florida kind of wanted to get rid of him so quickly. But he is a heck of a quarterback developer. I mean, you can look in the NFL and see that. So I feel like he will get the most out of any quarterback he has, and obviously he's got a pretty athletic guy at the helm right now. So.
Facts. So I mean, he can't go worse than what he had at a Hugh Freeze last year, right? So I mean, it can't get any worse than that. Or Brent Venables, who is a notoriously very defensive mind, not a offensive minded coach by any means. So maybe this could be the best situation for him too. Who knows what ends up happening with UNLV at number 2. But moving on to number 3, we got the Memphis Tigers, our first team from the American. And again, another team that, Reed, you had a little bit of skepticism on outside of your top 10. I'm wondering if it has something to do with how Charles Huff looked at Southern Miss towards the back end, or just the fact that maybe lost some of those key players when Ryan Silverfield left for Arkansas.
Exactly that point, the latter point. I think it's just going to take time for Charles Huff to build what he wants at Memphis. Coming back up from Southern Miss, I think it's just going to take time. I'm not saying they're going to have a losing season or anything. I still have them right on the edge. I have them at 11 personally, but I think the Tigers are just going to take time under Charles Huff. I still project them to have a winning record, still be competitive in the American. It's just nothing to me is really screaming they're going to win the American for me personally. We'll get to another team in a second that I personally have winning the American right now, but I mean, I project Memphis to still be a very competitive team. I just think it'll take Charles Huff some time. But shout out Air Nolan. I think Air Nolan could flourish in this Memphis offense
if he ends up winning the starting job, because they brought in a quarterback from West Florida. That's a pretty damn good player too. So I actually wouldn't be surprised if the kid from West Florida ends up winning. But man, I'll say this about Charles Huff. I thought that was a home run hire when they got him. Yes. And I think he's going to do some great things. I actually think could be arguably a coaching upgrade over Ryan Silverfield.
I think so.
I mean, we'll see. Time will tell. I mean, I love Huff, and Huff we trust over here. But, I don't really know. It's going to be tough to kind of tell. I'm kind of with Reed. I mean, I'm really, really high on Memphis. Don't get me wrong. I think they're going to be one of the better teams in the G6. But I do think there's going to be a lot to tell. And I do think it'll take a couple years for Huff to get where he wants, maybe 2. But I feel like what he's bringing in with him and, just who he is as a coach, he's kind of established himself pretty quickly early or at other programs. I think he'll be fine. And I think he's going to recruit really, really well at Memphis. He knows that area super well. And so I feel like he's going to kind of bring in some guys you wouldn't really think about. And I think he's a good developer as well. So I have a lot of expectations for Memphis with him at the helm.
Yeah, it's just a matter of does he end up like staying more than 1 year? Because we saw him like stay at Southern Miss for a grand total of 365 days, and then prior to that, he's only at Marshall for a few years. So hoping he stays long term, and hopefully he doesn't use Memphis as a leapfrog to get to like the power conference, like what Ryan Silverfield recently just did. But moving on to number 4, though, we got the San Diego State Aztecs. So we have our second Pac-12 team coming in for this G6 post-spring top 25. Now, Reed and I think we both absolutely love this Aztec team, and we think that's a real chance of them going to play for the Pac-12 title game. AT on the other hand, I know you got a little bit of skepticism. You almost had them outside of the top 10. So, what's the deal? What you got against Aztecs football, my man?
Man, I like them. I just think that it's I'm still pretty hype on them. I just think that they're probably maybe the third best team in the pack behind Boise State, behind Fresno, and so that's kind of my thought process. And I think when you look at rankings from this perspective, when you kind of got a team like that, then yeah, you're going to have to put them a little bit lower on the board. I still think they're one of the better teams in the G6, obviously. But yeah, for now, I just don't. I think that they're kind of outside that top 5 for me. So,
yeah, and I will say this is a really fascinating thing about San Diego State football. So they have a very offensive-minded head coach in Sean Lewis. So you would think that the offense would typically be the strength of the team. We've seen this with Lincoln Riley, for example, at USC, where the offense has been fantastic. He's had some incredible quarterbacks at USC, but then the defense was what held them back. Well, it was kind of the opposite last year. The defense was absolutely incredible for the Aztecs. And then offensively, you literally didn't know what you're going to get. Either you're going to get a pile of coal, or you were going to get a massive Hot Wheel set under the Christmas tree. There was really no in between at times for a San Diego State football team. So, I mean, there's more offensive consistency. They're going to be really dangerous. But I can see where you're coming from, AT. I hear you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know. There's some unknowns for them, but I think they're still a good team. I think the top 3 in their conference, and honestly, one of the better teams in the G6 still. I think they would compete and beat most of the guys on the list. I think they would play with Boise State or UNLV or anybody. I just think those teams got an edge on them. So,
yeah, for sure. Now, moving on to number 5, we got another American Conference team. That is the USF Bulls. Reed has been pounding the drum on this USF football team, but I know, AT, you and I, we don't love this USF team. We both had them almost out. You had them outside the top 10 for sure. I barely had them inside the top 10 myself. I'm worried about the fact that they did lose Byron Brown to Auburn. I think that's an incredibly talented quarterback, and I really liked the Brian Hartline hire. But I do worry about what is his operation going to look like. This is the first time that we see him as a head coach, and seeing him with a retooled roster as well. But I think USF is a pretty good football team, but there's definitely a couple of concerns here where I'm looking at them as, hey, they have a schedule they can take advantage of, but I don't think they're the same team as what they were last year. Last year's team was definitely a top 5 team, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, last year I'd have him top 5. And it was funny you said Reed's been hammering them home, because I'm not sure if he's actually a Penn State fan or a USF fan at this point. My guy, I know he's loving the Bulls going into next year, but they're good for me. Number 11 was, there's some things on my list here that I might not know where they're exactly sitting. I might have been wrong on a couple things, but number 11 was a very specific pick for me for USF, because I think they're a really good team. I think they're like really solid in the top 25 of the G6. One of the better programs, but there's still some unknowns. New head coach, new quarterback, just don't really know a lot about him right now. I think everything's trending in the right direction for him. I think they got the money, the resources, and the recruiting area, obviously being in Florida, to go be successful. But I just don't know a ton about him right now. So kind of sitting right outside that top 10, but still a really good program.
I think a lot for South Florida right now has to rely on who is starting a quarterback. They have a 3-way quarterback battle going on right now between KJ Cooper transferring in from Texas Southern, Van Buren from LSU, and Cromenhoek, your guy, AT, from Mississippi State. So
Van Buren came from State too. So that's two state dogs over there.
Yeah, and Cromenhoek was at Florida State before Mississippi State.
Right.
So
Yeah.
3-way quarterback battle. I mean, I'm intrigued to see who wins the battle. I think Van Buren has the most upside personally. They returned 4 starters, 3 of them offensively, 1 defensively. So, I mean, a lot of turnover, obviously, as we talked about, a lot of the roster that was there last season under Alex Golish leaving the program. But I think Brian Hartline and the crew did a great job at being able to retool them at the best they can. Obviously, first two new coordinators for the program as well. I think I'm very high on Tim Beck as the offensive coordinator for this football team. I think him and Brian Hartline are going to be able to mesh in a way that I think is going to be very competitive in the American Conference. Will it project in a American Conference title like I think so? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I think I'm very high on Hartline in the long term. That hype is creeping into the immediate time now, and that's why a lot of it is. That's why I'm so high on the Bulls. But I mean, to AT's point, I'm beating home the drum solely because one of my favorite players in all of college football played for South Florida last season. He's no longer there, and he's going to take the SEC by storm. So, shout out Byron Brown. But yeah, the Bulls long term under Hartline are easily on a very steep upward trajectory. I think the success hits them immediately, and I have them at number 3 personally. So,
have you done your preview yet for them, Reed?
I have not.
Okay, I was wondering what your record prediction was for the Bulls, if you had one, but we'll wait.
I was gonna say I got it pulled up right here. I can tell you right here.
All right, what you got? What you got for them this year?
So hold on, word search South Florida.
Yeah, that's a lot of previews when you had to go ahead and pull out the word search.
Word search.
Floor is 10-2, ceiling and projected record undefeated.
10-2 floor. I like it.
Yeah. 10-2 floor. I mean, that schedule is workable.
Yeah, it's a lot easier than what it was last year. I mean, last year the non-conference schedule was ridiculous. I mean, going to play Florida and then also going to play Boise State and then having to play Miami. I mean, that's an insane non-conference schedule. Like this time, they got FIU, Delaware State, Bowling Green, Kent State. I mean, they can certainly win all of those games for sure, but we're going to go ahead and move on to number 6. And number 6, we got New Mexico. The Lobos check in, our second Mountain West squad here. Reed and I, we both love this Lobos football team led by the son of the head coach, Jack Sinek, as a first-team all-conference linebacker. But AT, at the same time, you didn't have the same love for the Lobos as Reed and I did. So what's going on there, man?
Yeah, I mean, I have them in my top 15, and they're sitting at 14 for me. I think they're a good team. I just, I love Jason Eck. I think he's a heck of a head coach, but just didn't do fantastic on the recruiting side. I think they got the right pieces, but yet again, they're still a good program for me. I still think they're one of the better teams in the G5. Got them sitting in the top, at 14. They're just not in the top 10 for me. I couldn't put them, any higher than that. So,
all right.
But y'all, where do you have them at? Because y'all sell me on them, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
I personally have them at 4, and a lot of that has to do with they returned 13 starters. 4 of the 5 offensive linemen that started last season are back. I think having that continuity on the offensive line, I've talked about it on the program before, so people will know my philosophy. I value the trenches very heavily. So sorry, this fly is still bothering me. Anyway, 4 of the 5 offensive linemen are back from last season, so that goes into a lot of my projection for them. They have the clear margin of the most return production period of all teams in the Mountain West from last season. So I think that also has a lot to do with it. And huge Jason Eck guy. I mean, any press conference or anytime he is speaking, I am listening because he is electric. He's electric. So, I mean, they return a lot of the production. I think that has to do with it. It's also a very manageable schedule, in my opinion. I mean, they play every team in the conference. So, I think New Mexico, Jack Lane back at quarterback. I mean, they returned a handful of receivers that got meaningful game time last season. So, the trenches mean a lot to me. 4 or 5 offensive linemen returning, that's huge for me. So that's why I'm high on the Lobos. I think they could really go undefeated in the Mountain West.
Yeah, and I don't really trust their head coach as well. Their head coach did an incredible job of really turning this program around right away. This was a program that was typically one of the tougher places to win and go in right away and really were screwed out of a Mountain West title opportunity because of how that tiebreaker works. I think this team is going to be really motivated to actually take that next step as a program, make the Mountain West title game, and potentially challenge UNLV. So, I mean, I had them personally as a top 5 team, so I wasn't incredibly surprised when I was putting this together, and I had them at number 6.
Yeah, they're good. I mean, like I said, I do like Jason Eck. I think you guys have a lot of good points. I think they're still really solid chance to go and win their conference, but maybe just not one of the top 10 teams for me in the entire G6. So,
yeah, so I'm gonna keep it rolling here with number 7. We got our first Sun Belt team. We have James Madison. The Dukes check in, our defending Sun Belt champions. I was actually a little surprised when I put this graphic together, and they ended up at number 7. I had them a touch lower. They came in at number 13 for me, and it was a team that saw a lot of transition with its roster. Brand new head coach in like Billy Napier, who could return to the Sun Belt Napier ways. But I just got to see that happen. Coming from a spot where he was fired, right? So I'm a little skeptical about Sunbelt Billy, but I will say this about this Dukes program as a whole. I think they're one of the better, well out-resourced teams in this conference. And so it's just one of those spots where it's going to be incredibly hard for Billy Napier to mess this up as long as he has something in the tank and is not well past his prime from a coaching perspective. So this was a touch higher than what I personally had them. I still think it's a pretty good football team, and honestly, this is still a team that I think wins the Sun Belt this fall.
I think they're definitely.
I have them a little bit higher than this, in either way. So, I think they're going to be a good team. I think I think it's a lot of what you said. It'd be tough for Billy Napier to screw it up. He's kind of, they're kind of the Alabama, the early 2020 Alabamas of the G6 right now. They've got the resources. They've got the name. It's cool to be at James Madison. And so I think, if Billy Napier can do good, then he can, or if he can not mess it up like he did at Florida, then I think he'll do fine there, and they'll be a good program. So
I think it's definitely their conference to lose. I think I like the transfer additions they made. Two running backs, Herman and Cromwell, both rushed for over nearly 600 yards for Cromwell, nearly 1,000 for Herman. Noah Grievous, over 700 yards receiving coming into this offense. So, I mean, who really is going to start a quarterback is a huge question for me. Arrington Maiden or Davi Belfort, I mean, are probably the two front runners right now. I'm leaning towards Maiden. So a lot of turnover holistically on the entire roster for JMU, let alone the head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. So, I mean, you spoke about it, Jake. I think they're one of the more heavily resourced programs in the G6. I think that will play to their benefit in the long run for Billy Napier, as long as he doesn't implode season 1, as long as he keeps the ship afloat. I think JMU will be fine. So, I mean, we project them to win the conference. So I think it's really theirs to lose. I mean, aside from another team we'll talk about later, but I think it's theirs to lose.
Yeah, and according to Michael Bankins in the chat, James Madison is the best apparently. So you love to see that level of confidence. Which, by the way, at any time you're seeing this top 25 graphic, you think a team is too high or too low, definitely let us know about it in the live chat or in the comments section, depending on when you're watching. But we're going to go ahead and move on here to number 8, another Pac-12 team. That is going to be the Fresno State Bulldogs, coming in as our third Pac-12 team. And this is a team, Reed, that you had a little bit of skepticism on going into this year. And I'm wondering if it has something to do with maybe some of the inconsistencies that they saw on the offense side of the ball at times.
That definitely has a role in my thought process. They do return 3 starters on the offensive line, so that is pretty good continuity there. They returned 16 starters overall, which is pretty good. I think just entering a holistically more competitive conference top to bottom in the Pac-12 is not going to favor them well. Boise State, San Diego State, Texas State, those 3 teams I view higher than Fresno State. So I think they're still going to be a competitive team. I think it's just a lot of those 3 main games I mentioned are going to be toss-ups in my mind for Fresno State. So I think it's going to be I wouldn't say a complete fall off of the season. I think it's just a middling out. I think it's a 500 year for them personally. That's what I project their record to be. So I think the Bulldogs. I mean, I've talked about this. I mean, off air with you guys, but I mean, really 11 to 25. It was just tough for me to just fluctuate teams and put them properly where I think it's. So Fresno State had to be one of the victims of that and fall at 22 for me personally.
Yeah, and I can understand that where you're coming from for sure, but I will say this: I think that I'm a little bit more in line with what the poll is saying. I have them as I want to say my third best of like Pac-12 team. I mean, I don't think they're at the same level as a Boise State. I don't think they're at the same level necessarily as a San Diego State either. But I do think that this is going to be one of those teams that when we get into the month of November, they're going to have something to say about what this like team is going to look like. And honestly, shout out to the Bulldogs. They have really one of the underrated home field advantages in college football. No one really talks about it unless you live out there on the West Coast. But man, that is a tough stadium to have to go play in. That's going to really benefit them to their advantage, especially when they get into Pac-12 conference play, which for G6 standards, it's going to be a gauntlet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right in line with them. I agree with everything you said, Jake. I mean, I could see where you guys are coming from. I still think that they're going to be they're a top 3 team for me in the Pac-12. I think that they could easily be competing for the championship at the end of the year too, to be honest. I think that they're as good, if not better, than San Diego State. Those are two teams that are kind of comparable to me right now. I think that San Diego State might have a higher potential, but I think Fresno State's kind of been a little bit more I don't know, heading in that right direction the last couple of years. So I'm hype on the Bulldogs. I've got them right sitting at number 8 as well. So I think I'm high on them. I think they're a really good team in the G6. One of the best ones is where I've got them. So.
All right, so let's check in on see who we got at number 9, and it's the Navy midshipmen checking in at number 9. So for me, I was feeling bold and I was feeling dangerous when talking about Navy football. I had them as my second best team in the country in the G6. I really love this Navy football team. I love this head coaching staff. I know that they are going to lose multiple players to graduation into the NFL. Heinrich, Pittsburgh kid, got the opportunity to play for his hometown team with a 7th-round pick. So shout out to him especially. But I will also say this. It's not just for Navy, but it also applies for the other academies as well. We talked about it earlier on the show tonight where if you have a really good to an excellent season in the G6, what often happens is your coach gets poached and you end up losing your best players to bigger schools in the transfer portal. But what's unique about Navy especially is that their best players are not leaving to go into the transfer portal because those players that they end up developing internally, they are the type of guys that they're not there primarily to play football. They're primarily there to, serve our nation and be like our next generation of military officers, right? So that being said, while Navy doesn't have the benefit of being able to use the transfer portal, they can't supplement their roster at any given point, like even a Boise State or a UNLV can. They also don't have to worry about, I can develop a guy for 3, 4, 5 years and be able to know that, hey, this kid is going to stick around at least 95% of the time. So, they do lose a couple of guys in the NFL. They do lose Blake Horvath to the NFL. But at the same time, they're going to have guys coming in that been in that system for multiple years. And I think that this Navy team, frankly, being slept on a little bit here at number 9, I think this team is going to have quite a bit to say about who wins the American Championship this year. And they almost won the American last year. They were right there. Like, we talked a lot about Tulane and North Texas. Like, Navy was in that conversation too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And competing and would have and could have beat either one of those teams, on any given Saturday, to be honest. I mean, they had a really good football program last year. I'm hype on them. They're number 6 for me, where I've got them ranked, and I feel confident in that. I think they're one of the best teams in the G6. Definitely in the top 10. I think that that's kind of where I'm sitting. It's a lot of what you said. They develop. They're kind of old school. Recruit out of high school, develop these kids. The kids aren't leaving. They keep a lot of the same guys around. They run a really old school, beat 'em up type style offense, and we love to watch it. And I think that year in and year out, as long as they keep a similar staff and keep a similar mindset, I think the Navy is going to be a competitive team. So
now, let me preface this because Jake's laughing because I personally have the midshipmen at 21st. Now, the reasoning behind this is solely on the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side, I'm actually not that worried about because of the returning production on that side. Mark Anthony Parker, Giuseppe Sessi, Coleman Colley, all, 40 plus tackles. Philip Hamilton, 40 plus tackles between those four players. Griffin Willis, 7 sacks. Mark Anthony Parker, 7 sacks. So the defense, I'm not worried about. It's the offense, which Jake prefaced, Blake Horvath, Eli Heidenreich, the other players are escaping me, but a ton of upperclassmen are leaving that program. It's a lot of unknown who's filling in those spots. Braxton Woodson is going to be the starter. He got a little bit of game time last season, not a ton, 44 carries, 414, 6 touchdowns on the ground. The running backs are a litany of players that haven't really gotten major game time for Navy. Now they might have played at the plebe school and gotten like the JV reps, which is good for them, but meaningful game time in the American where it's a gauntlet. Sure, I say that. You have to play the other service academies, an Air Force and an Army. Like those are big time games. Those mean everything to the Navy football program, regardless of what your record is. So my point in saying that is I think it's just going to be too much to overcome that major production loss offensively. I'm not saying Navy doesn't have a winning record because I think it's just Navy's nature, especially under Brian Newberry now as the new head coach. They're going to be a competitive football team. I'm not saying that. I think it's just way too much to be optimistic about them winning and being in the American Conference title race again, for me personally. But I'm not saying they're not going to be a competitive team. I just think it's could be too much of a stretch for them to be back in the conference title conversation. So that's why I have them at 21st personally.
Yeah, and I will say this about this Navy football team as well. I guess I don't really worry about the losses that they had on the offensive side of the ball because they are losing some weapons on the offensive side of the ball. I'm not going to deny that. But the triple option is one of the hardest things to cover, especially in this era of college football where because it's not seen as much, it's that much harder to replicate it and defend it like in practice and preparation. So the one famous saying that I always think about is, the following times are a bad time to play against an option football team. The first game of the season, the 12th game of the season, the very last game, and any game that falls in between the first and the last game is always a difficult time to play this option attack. So I think Navy is going to be really good. I think they're going to be right back in that conversation. But, the beautiful thing is that it's still May. So there's still a lot to figure out there.
Yeah, I think there's also, this isn't holistically off of scheduling based on our rankings, but I think scheduling has to play a part in my thought process as well. They open the season at home against Towson and then play 3 straight road games with a bye week in week 3. So they don't play another home game for a month until October 10th against Tulsa. I think that has to play a thought in my thinking here. They also have to play at Notre Dame, at UTSA, which we saw Tulane go on the road there last year when they were a relevant team and got smacked. They have to play Temple, who can be pesky, Memphis at home. So, it's not a layup schedule within conference play for the midshipmen by any means. So, again, I think Brian Newberry, this is just a reset year based on the amount of production that they lost offensively. I still think Navy is a 500 or better bowl team, and I think they're going to be playing a bowl game no matter what. So, I still view this midshipman team in high regards.
Yeah, although I will say the next team that we have coming up, I think is going to be one of the most fascinating teams that really is going to be talked about in all college football. North Dakota State comes in number 10 in our Group G6 poll. Reed, you and I love North Dakota State. I know as an offensive line guy, you just salivate when you watch Bison football during Saturdays in the fall. Although, someone that wasn't salivating as much about North Dakota State during Saturdays in the fall, AT had them just a little bit lower than the number 10 spots. So, AT, I'm just curious where you were coming from when you saw this Bison football team. Is it more of just
they're not on my list at all, and the reasoning is very simple. Very simple. What do we know about them? Have they played in this conference yet, or have they been around? They haven't. So for me, I can't rank a team that I know nothing about at the FBS level. So that's we know they're a good team. I think they're going to probably be in the top 10. I think you guys got them at the right spot. But me personally, very simple defense on this one. Haven't seen him here yet, so I can't put him in a post spring top 25. So
AT. AT.
is that it? That's all you have? Nothing else?
Hold on. I'm pulling up something to prove a point. AT. Do you know how many FCS national titles the Bison won between 2011 and 2024?
Several.
Yeah. Try double digits. They won 10.
10. I knew it was. I was going to say 10. Yeah, which is insane. Okay, look.
Yeah. And hold on. That's all you need to know to be able to put them in your top 10. That's all you need to know. That's all you need to know.
Fair enough. And teams have come in and competed. You know, we've had a lot of FCS teams come in and compete, but we just don't know yet. We don't know yet. So for me, I'm keeping them outside until week 1, until week 0, because they do play week 0. So
also the fact that one of your favorite players in all of college football for the Delaware Blue Hens came from the FCS level and competed immediately. So what are we like, dude? Come on.
Thank you for bringing that up. I was a huge Delaware fan last season. They just came out. I'm glad I wasn't going to say that because I would out myself on that one, but I'm glad you remember that. But
also, quickly, that's blasphemy. We don't even have him in the just miss. So to our other two colleagues and potentially Jake, how dare you not even have the Blue Hens in consideration?
Hey,
they were just
Hold on.
I also want to preface, I don't have them in my personal top 5, but they would have been 26th.
Yeah,
I have them at 25. I purposefully put the Delaware Blue Hens in the top 25 to make sure they were on this list. And they're not even a just miss. So, it's okay. It's okay.
Listen, Reed made every single point that I wanted to make about North Dakota State. So I'm going to keep moving out of the top 10. We move on to number 11. We get our first MAC team, surprisingly. We get the Miami Redhawks coming in at number 11 here. And I'm going to say this about this Miami team. I kind of talked about it off screen with you, Reed, but between the pre-spring and then whenever I hopped on your show, talked about G6 potential conference title contenders, I've talked myself into liking Miami more and more from when we were having these conversations in the February and March timeframe to right now. My thing is that I think Miami is possibly the best team in the MAC, but what does that actually mean though? I mean, the MAC. I love the MAC. I love midweek action in the month of November. Nothing really tickles my pickle more than a random Tuesday action game. But does that hold up a candle to the American or the Pac-12 or even the Mountain West looks to be a solid conference even after what they lost. So I had them outside of my top 20 to be honest with you. I was a little surprised to see them this high, to be honest.
Yeah, Jake, me too. They're right at 20 for me, so I'm right there with you, Jake. I'm kind of surprised to see him sitting in the top 15 or even higher than that, obviously.
So I'm carrying the weight here. I have Miami at 9th, which is actually my second ranked MAC team.
Whoa.
Second ranked MAC team. I have a team ranked higher than them at 9. So there's one name you gotta know for Miami. Rodney Nelson, transfer running back from Monmouth, 294 carries, 1,800 yards, 18 touchdowns. He averaged 6 yards a carry. He's 5'8", 195. He is going to be toting the rock for this Miami Redhawks team. Malik Huggins is back on the outside, had over 800 yards receiving. I mean, what's not to love about this Miami team? They're playing in Detroit, Jake. I agree with you. They are playing in Detroit.
Who's throwing the ball?
Thomas Gokowski, man. Hopefully. They also returned 4 starters in the offensive line.
I was going to say, I know you love that offensive line, but listen, I've done breakdowns of all 138 teams, and even then, I didn't know exactly who you were talking about the quarterback position to be so real with you there. But I mean, for me, they just have to prove it outside of the conference. The MAC isn't on the same level as some of these other conferences, so. I mean, I'm with you. I think they're one of the best teams in this conference, and I think we'll see them in Detroit. I really do. But what does that mean, though? Because we have also seen historically over the last few years, the MAC as a whole hasn't been great in non-conference play, and they haven't been very good in the bowl season either. So I think I just see these other conferences on a higher level than the MAC right now.
Totally get that.
Yeah,
Totally
love the
understand that.
action, but they're struggling for real.
Yeah, top to bottom, it might be. I mean, I'm skeptical of saying that it might be the worst G6 conference, top to bottom.
Yeah, I haven't run those numbers, but I mean they're probably in that same tier as like the CUSA.
Yeah.
But anyhow, we're gonna move on before we start to get crucified by the Maction people. Number 12, we do have the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors, led by Micah Alahada. But apparently there is a non-Micah Alahada lover in the midst. I wouldn't say a hater, but I don't know if we have a lover.
I mean, I wouldn't even say this is
Dude.
hating. This is not hating. I have them at 24. I mean, it's not like that's not even that bad. I think they're going to be a good football program, but I just don't know a ton about where I just don't think they're top 15 right now. I think when we get into the season, yeah, I think they have a really high ceiling for me, which is why they made the top 25. But I just don't. Their floor is kind of lower than a lot of the other teams, I guess. And it's the same thing you guys have been saying. Honestly, for me, really 12 through 25 is incredibly tough in this conference because I feel like a lot of the teams that I have at number 12, 13, 14, 15 could lose at some games to the teams at 22, 23, 24. So for me, having this team at 24 is not like bad. It's just showing that I think they're one of the better teams in the G6, but they're just not one of the best in my opinion. It's kind of tough to rate, I guess, these guys. I just don't know a ton about them, to be honest. So
Micah Alahada, though.
AT.
Love the coach. Love the coach. I feel like I'm just making Reed super disappointed tonight, but that's okay.
I mean, did you even watch the Hawaii Bowl against Cal? The Samoanoff Sagapol Atele against Alahado, like
1:30 in the morning. What are we doing?
Yeah. That was a great Christmas. Like, what are we talking about? This is not a team, Hawaii, that returns a lot of production on the offensive line. They only returned 2 starters, but they do have some depth that I think is going to be able to backfill the outgoing offensive line. I mean, this is solely Mike Alahada for me. Returning with Pofele Ashlock on the outside, his number 1 receiver. I mean, this is solely Mike Alahada for me. I have him at 12, so I align with the collective graphic here, but the Rainbow Warriors, man.
I do love the staff. I mean, I think this is a really good football team. Or a football program, I should say. They're heading the right direction. Obviously, Hawaii a couple of years ago, nothing to look at. But they're definitely moving in the right direction. But they're just yet again, it's just incredibly hard for me to rate these guys. I think 24 is pretty reasonable. I think they could still compete. So.
Yeah, and another team that I think could absolutely compete within their respective conference as well is East Carolina, coming in at number 13. And honestly, between AT and I, we're actually on different ends of the spectrum. So I am actually a touch higher on this East Carolina football team than what the collective ended up voting on. I had them in my top 10, almost in my top 5. I do have some worries about who's going to play quarterback. I think Kane Hauser is going to be quite a bit of a loss. And then losing their wide receiver in Yannick Smith, losing him to SMU, that's going to be tough. But I really like this head coaching staff. And I think that East Carolina, in a conference that has some incredible football teams, and I mean, you look at this graphic, we have several teams from the American represented in our top 25. I think East Carolina is one of the more physically imposing teams in this conference, and I think that defense is going to be doing just fine as well. So I am pretty high on this East Carolina team moving forward. I think that's a team that could be a real dark horse contender to win the American this year.
I think they're definitely going to be in the conversation. The biggest question for me, Jake, is that quarterback position. Mitch Griffiths does transfer in from Texas Tech by way of Wake Forest. Before that, Emory Williams also is a transfer quarterback competing for the position. Shout out Mitch Griffiths. He's originally from my hometown, Leesburg, Virginia. His really only meaningful game time was at Wake Forest, 2023. 9 touchdowns to 7 interceptions, 1,500 yards. So, I mean, it's a mixed bag of what you're going to get at quarterback for East Carolina, but a lot of our contingency is pretty high on the Pirates. I mean, it sounds like for AT. So the Pirates, I think are going to be competitive. It's just can they put it all together for me? So I mean, the biggest question is quarterback.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly where I'm at. I mean, I agree with the entirety of what you said. I've just got them lower. I've got them at 21. Yet again, some unknowns about them, some question marks. I think that's kind of just yet again one of the better teams in the G6. I think they're a great program, heading in the right direction. Love the staff, but there's just enough question marks for me that I couldn't put them in the top 15. So.
Yeah, totally fair for sure. And I'm sure this next team is also going to have some question marks going into this year as well. The Tulane Green Wave, yet another American team, checks in at number 14 for us here tonight. Reed and AT, I mean, once again, I see you two are on the complete different ends of the spectrum. Reed, I'm not surprised by you. I know this is all because of Will Hall, ain't it?
You hate Will Hall? This is news.
No,
to me.
hold on. Don't hate Will Hall, because if he somehow ever is watching this, Will Hall, I do not hate you. I'm just very, very low on you, and you could potentially be a bottom 5 head coach in college football going into next season. Anyway, AT, do you know Will Hall's previous head coaching experience?
I mean, no, I do not.
That's a good answer because he doesn't have any.
Oh, he's not good.
Not saying he can't be a great head coach. He just has no prior experience. I cannot back a head coach that has no prior experience.
Well, he has prior experience. It's just that he went 11-40 in his 5 years at Southern Miss. So it's
because he was at.
I prefaced no prior experience.
I remember him at Southern though. I do remember him there. He was there for a while, but it was pretty rough. Yeah, that was their dark years for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Bad experience is no experience in my eyes. So
yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, yeah. Look, I like Tulane. I think that returning quarterback. I think there's a lot to love about him. I didn't know that there was just so much hatred here for Will Hall. Maybe I should go. No hatred. Okay, yeah, no hatred. Just
strong dislike.
Strong dislike. Okay, yeah, strong dislike. Some disrespect, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I think Tulane's still going to be one of the better teams in G6. They're kind of like a Boise State, like a James Madison to me. Memphis. Not saying they're that caliber, but they are to me. They're top 10, top 5. But I think that they have got the resources. They've got the trend. They're kind of doing really well. They've done really well. Obviously, it's a lot to do with their coach. But Tulane, for a while now, has been on the map. And so I think that they're still going to be one of the best teams in the G6 until proven otherwise. So,
yeah, and I'm definitely putting some trust into their program as well. I do think that it is one of the best programs, not only in the American, but in all of the G6 as well. I was about in the middle. I was a touch higher than the consensus here. They were almost in my top 10, to be honest with you. But I definitely understand concerns that Reed had. But I'm closer to you, AT. I think this Tulane team is going to be fine. I think that there's enough in place organizationally that even Will Hall can't mess it up too badly. I would imagine, right? So that more to come. Again, we got like a few months before we even start spotting the ball in the field. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But UTSA, again, we just continue this run of American Conference teams. They check in at number 15. Roadrunners again. Reed, you feel a lot better about this UTSA team than the Tulane team that we just talked about, though.
Owen McCown, baby. Owen McCown returns at quarterback, 3 starters in the offensive line. Will Henderson, the third back at running back, nearly 900 yards rushing. AJ Wilson, 500 yards receiving. I mean, this UTSA team is always going to be able to put up points when Jeff Traylor is the head coach. So I'm fully buying into it. I think they compete for at least a appearance in the American Conference Championship game. I have them as high as 6.
Dang.
Short and sweet. I'm high on this Roadrunners team. I feel like they've been knocking on the door. It's a couple of games have just derailed their season, and I still cannot get the Tulane game last year out of my head.
Yeah. This is a miss for me. I'm actually a lot higher on this UTSA team than I have here listed. I actually don't even have them on my thing, but yeah, I'm glad that you have them so high, Reed. I wouldn't be at 6 with them, but I would be top 15 for sure. I'm meep all the way. Owen McCowan is exactly what you said. I do love the Roadrunners. I'm incredibly biased towards them. I watch, literally every single game UTSA plays. I don't know why, but I just have an affinity for them. And I think that they're heading in the right direction for sure. So I'm glad that you have them in the top 10 because this is definitely a good football team. Definitely one of the better teams in the G6, no doubt. So.
And I'll say this about UTSA. I think this might be one of the more controversial takes about the G6. I think UTSA wins the American this year. I think we see them in the American Championship game. They're hosting it, and then they win this damn league this year. I think this is the year that they break through under Jeff Traylor. Really, the biggest thing between them having a above average to good season and a great season that sees them win the American, like I think they can. Can they win outside the Alamo Dome, please?
Yeah.
You know, like when UTSA was playing in the Alamo Dome, they looked like a damn college football playoff team. But when they were like playing on the road, you know, at times like abysmal on the road. So, I mean, Jeff Traylor's been there for a long time. You know, he's figured out how to win multiple conference titles back when UTSA was in the CUSA. You know, so I think he can figure it out and get the best out of his team. It's just, can they get over that hump in terms of being focused on the road?
At least their road games are favorable, at least in conference, at Rice, at Tulane, Florida Atlantic, and UAB.
Yeah, and one of those road games that they are going to have to take care of in the non-conference. So, very next team on our list, Texas State. The Bobcats check in at number 16. So this is going to surprise you guys because I remember back when we were previewing the Pac-12 originally, I was incredibly high on this Texas State football team. I thought this was a dark horse to win the Pac-12. And for me, how things ended up shaking out at this point was ever since like we saw spring ball go into play, I haven't really heard anything positive about, you know, any development on the defensive side of football. Their starting running back ended up getting arrested, so that's going to have an impact. I still think this is going to be one of the more dangerous passing attacks in the G6 with Brad Jackson and what they're going to have in the perimeter, plus what they brought in high school recruiting. They brought in a 4-star recruit and a high 3-star recruit that both played wide receiver. So, I mean, the passing attack is going to be fun. I cannot wait to watch Brad Jackson. But I just worry about not only the defense, which is what I had concerns about way back in March and February, but now are they going to be a little bit too one-sided with their starting running back being arrested and no longer a part of his program?
It's going to be tough. I'm high on them, but I'm not. I think they're still going to be a good football team. We've said a lot about them here. I mean, you know, even in our preview that we did, I think you were a little bit higher than I was on them, Jake. You kind of sold me on a couple points there. I still think defensively they'll be pretty strong, even though they weren't last year. I feel like they're making the right improvements in the portal and getting the right additions there. So I feel like that this is going to be an improved Texas State team. And that's saying something because I feel like they've been heading in the right direction. And so I actually have them in my top 10. I still think this is one of the better teams in the G6. They're sitting right at 10 for number 10 for me. But outside of that, you know, I do think that, or I do expect a lot out of them. Just honestly, as I kind of expect a lot out of the Pac-12 teams. I think that's the strongest conference right now. And so I'm maybe leaning a little bit, you know, or giving those guys a little bit heavier weight just by being in that conference. But I guess time will tell to see if it really does pay out like that. So,
yeah, they made a handful of portal additions defensively that I think is going to be able to supplement their defensive troubles last year. And Bo Sparks is one of the best receivers in all of college football, alongside of Chris Don, who is another 1,000-yard receiver in that room. So, I have Texas State and also my top 10, number 8 personally. I think the Bobcats are going to be competitive in the Pac-12 year one.
Yeah, I mean, I still think they're going to be a competitive football team. I just worry about, are they going to have enough defensively in order to keep up with the rest of the Pac-12? Because I think holistically, you know, these Pac-12 teams are going to be better than what they face in the Sun Belt. And at times last year, I mean, they needed a really strong run in November to make it the bowl season. I love how they finished. You know, they finished on a 4-game winning streak, including that bowl win against Rice. They learned the number 1 rule in college football, not playing with food. But at the same time, you know, the defense was inconsistent at times, and we saw that with James Madison absolutely obliterating Texas State in a midweek conference game. So there's things like that where I'm curious about, because there's teams just as good as James Madison that are in this Pac-12, and you can apply that to multiple entities in that conference.
It's true.
Yeah.
Very good point.
I agree.
But moving on now to number 17, we actually get our first CUSA team. Come on down, Western Kentucky. I will say this about the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. They come in as my favorite to win the CUSA title this year. And AT, this was a team in particular that you definitely enjoyed and are particularly high on going into this college football season.
Yeah, I mean, it was what you said for me, and I was looking a lot of at conferences when rating my like 12 through 25 here. I didn't have anyone in the Conference USA yet, so WKU, my favorite to win the Conference USA as well. Put them right at number 12. They're kind of sitting up there solely because I think they're going to be one of the best teams in their conference, and I think they're one of the better teams in the G6. They've had a head coach there for several years now. In Tyson Helton. I think that he's going to continue to do a good job there. Love the Red Toppers. Think they got one of the best mascots in the country. Heck of a media team as well during the football season. So that might be why I also got them in the top 15. I love to watch them. So.
Yeah, and I will say this about Western Kentucky as well. I think that this Western Kentucky squad, I think it's one of the best programs in the CUSA. It's been up there with Liberty over the past 4 to 5 years. Just really love the process of Troy Helton that he's built out there in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And I'll say this, arguably one of the best head coaches in that conference. So, I mean, I definitely understand why you're high on this team as well.
Yeah, for sure. What are you looking at, Reed? I feel like you kind of you way lower on Western Kentucky, or you just
I actually agree with the consensus. I have Western Kentucky at 17, but they're not my highest ranked CUSA team. I think this is a Tyson Helton feel. Pause. I think I'm high on Western. Not high, but I think I have West Kentucky where they are just solely because Tyson Helton has done a good job at Western Kentucky. He's stabilized the program. He's made him a consistent competitor in the Conference USA. So that's solely, I think, where I have him at 17, just solely because of that. Nothing's really standing out to me as like they're way better in this area versus another team. They're just a model of consistency. It's kind of like a Iowa in the power forward. Iowa's a model of consistency. Western Kentucky is a model of consistency. Jay Rockwell, though, watch out. That's a bad man at wide receiver.
Although I would say probably the reverse Iowa, because when you think of Iowa, you think of defense and you're hoping that offense has a pulse. With Western Kentucky, you know that offense is going to be fun to watch. Watching Bailey Zappi and Maverick McAvoy, which is an incredible name, by the way. It's a matter of, does the defense have the pulse? That's always been the question with the Hilltoppers under Troy Helton. But hey, fun team. Is going to be some compelling games that they're going to be involved in CUSA action.
New defensive coordinator.
New defensive coordinator. So maybe things change.
Yep.
If Iowa can have a pulse on passing attack last year, I mean, maybe Western Kentucky can have a defense. Who knows?
Also, new offensive coordinator, Brody Reeder.
Okay.
That's a name. Brody Reeder.
That's a name.
That is a name. That's absolutely a name. And I'm sure there's some names on this Washington State team as well, who comes in at number 18. And yet again, another Pac-12 team. It seems the Pac-12 and the American have dominated his top 25 seemingly. I haven't counted the number of teams yet. That's going to be done on an undisclosed location later. But for this Washington State team, I was pleasantly surprised to see them on there, because even though they're on their third coach in the last 3 years, I still think they have some pieces to at least be a spicy team to deal with in the Pac-12. But Reed, I know you have some concerns about them going into the season, though.
I think their mass transfer additions, mainly defensively, is where I have my question marks. Mass transfer portal additions on the defensive side of the ball. I like their offensive pieces. Caden Pinnock is a name to watch out for, a quarterback, over 3,000 yards, 32 touchdowns last season for UC Davis, of all schools. So he transfers into Washington State. He's a name to watch out for at quarterback. I mean, I solely don't have him ranked because I think it's just too many additions defensively. New defensive coordinator as well. Can they gel in his system? So I think Washington State could potentially be competitive, but I don't think competitive enough to have him in my top 25 personally.
Yeah, totally get that with this team moving into this year. But I know that AT and I, we were probably a little bit closer in line to what the consensus was. I mean, AT, I think you had him around 19. I still think there's some good pieces here, and they have an underrated home field advantage as well. But I think it's going to help them out to at least be a mid-tier team in the Pac-12. So I think they're going to be okay. Maybe not in that top tier where you're expecting them to be competing for conference championships, at least this year. I was a little surprised to see them behind Texas State, though. I will say that.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got them right at 19, so I'm right there with you, Jake. I agree with everything that Reed said, though. I think that's kind of some of the same concerns I have with them. But this was a good team last year. I think they got a lot of slack for their record, but I mean, they played some really, really good football programs really close throughout the year. I mean, you're talking about a lot of one-score games against P5 opponents. And so I think, they get a couple of those games back, and we're talking about them as one of the better teams in the G6 last year. So, it just kind of their season flipped on them on a head. And so I still think they're going in the right direction. It's tough to rank them though. A lot of new pieces, just like with everybody else on the board here. So, but I still think that we got to put some respect on their name and keep them in the top 20. So.
Yeah, and I mean, not only was it with Ole Miss, which made the college football playoff and beat Georgia, but I mean, they were also close with Virginia, who ended up finishing the year in the top 25. And then also James Madison, who was another playoff team. So, I mean, that was another team that Washington State almost beat. So, really could have been talking about them as a 10-win team last year. But, instead, close only counts in, horseshoes, hand grenades, and nuclear missiles. So, it is what it is at this point. But speaking of number 19, we got Western Michigan. We get our second MAC team on the board. And, Western Michigan, defending MAC champions. I don't have them as my best MAC team. I think Miami is a little bit better. The consensus seems to be that way. But, Reed, you love this Western Michigan team.
I do. Brock Lowry, Jalen Buckley. That's all you got to know. They're going to be playing in Detroit. They're going to be playing Miami of Ohio. End of story. Short and sweet.
Where do you have them at, Reed? What do you got them at?
5.
Oh Lord. Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, I'm not there with them. I love it. I love the confidence. I'm not quite there yet. So
if they didn't play in such a mediocre conference, they would be a fringe CFP team, but they play in the MAC.
And they're going to get opportunities to prove themselves, not only with their P4 non-conference game. I believe that let me go ahead and
Michigan.
That. Yeah, they definitely have Michigan. Got to have that.
Boise State week 4.
Yeah, Boise State is going to be a big one as well. I think that's really the game that you circle as really the measuring stick game between the top of the Pac-12 and one of the top teams in the MAC. If the MAC is going to get some respect on our name, I mean, Western Michigan kind of has to do what USF did last year. Maybe not outright beat them or obviously not blow them out, but I mean, you got to be competitive. You can't let Boise State travel all the way across the country and kick your ass. Okay. Like you got to give them a 4-quarter game.
Yeah. And I mean, I think they do have a pretty favorable schedule. So yeah, it could be, they could have a good season. I'm just not as high as 5. That's for sure. So
shout out Philly J thinking the MAC championship should be played outdoors in Michigan, Ohio, Indiana.
Freezing cold snow games. I love it. I love you. I would love to turn on a conference championship snow game. I mean, come on. I love that. He's obviously also knows ball because he said NDSU top 10. What am I missing? So obviously, he's saying there's some crazy people out here that put NDSU in the top 10. Wasn't me, man. That's all I got to say.
Like I said, we'll take all the credit. We'll accept none of the blame. It is interesting because we see other conferences do this. Like the Sun Belt, it's basically best conference record host, and it's the same with the I want to say it's the CUSA as well. So I mean, it's possible to do this. So I mean, I would be supportive of that. Even though it is tradition to play in Detroit at the end of the year. Speaking of trying to get to Detroit, we got another MAC signing. So 3 MAC teams make the top 25 after all. It's the Toledo Rockets, the Rocket Men. Brand new head coach, though. Mike Jacobs takes over after Jason Candle leaves for UConn. But I will say this, Toledo's, I think they got some interesting components from the FCS. Love what Mike Jacobs did at Mercer, but I didn't have in the top 25 because it's kind of you're bringing a lot of key players from the FCS, so they got to go out and improve it at the end of the day. But I like Toledo's outlook long term. I think Mike Jacobs is going to do an incredible job up there in Northwestern Ohio.
Yeah, I definitely view Toledo to be going back in the right direction with Mike Jacobs. I mean, they've been a consistent team the past few years in the MAC. I think Mike Jacobs keeps them on that course. CJ Miller, transfer running back, nearly 1,000 yards rushing last year at Mercer, who is one of the better FCS offenses and teams overall. Obviously, Mike Jacobs comes from Mercer, so he brings a lot of his production from the Bears last season. So I think Toledo's going to be a competitive team. I think they just miss out on a trip to Detroit. So they still come in my top 25. They come in at number 19.
Yeah, they're sitting at number 18 for me. I'm agreeing with everything Reed said. I think this is a good team. One of the better teams in the G6. I do like Mike Jacobs. I think that he's going to do a good job there. Hopefully he'll be able to get established quickly. Yeah, I like the Rockets. So hopefully we see them do pretty well next year. At least start trending in the right direction under him. I think he's a name that we could be talking about in the next couple of years too, as somebody moving up in the maybe into the P4 or something. So.
Yeah, and Toledo in recent memory has been a kind of a cradle in terms of producing quality head coaches, whether it's the current head coach for Penn State, for example, who spent a lot of time at Toledo prior to taking the Iowa State job and doing some incredible work in Ames, Iowa, or Jason Candle doing some good work. Maybe disappointed a touch over the last couple of years, but it's going to take over a quality program in UConn and trying to build off of what UConn has been the last couple of years. So fascinated to see what Mike Jacobs looks like at the FBS ranks, but I don't completely doubt that they can finish as a top 25 team within the G6, as is Old Dominion as well. Old Dominion comes in at number 21. I honestly was a little bit surprised to see Old Dominion here. I didn't have them in my top 25. Honestly, I think that losing a Colton Joseph to Wisconsin is definitely going to hurt. But I do think that Ricky Ron is now starting to get to a point where the program is going to be bigger than maybe an individual player. I still think they'll be fine. I still think that they'll be a bowl team this year, but I don't see them as necessarily a top tier Sun Belt contender like what's being suggested here.
Yeah, I mean, you go ahead, Reed.
I think they're definitely going to be a competitive team. I think their strong suit is on the defensive side. They retained defensive coordinator Blake Seiler, multiple defensive pieces that were on the roster last season, namely Mario Easterly. So I think the Monarchs are going to be a competitive team. It's just my questions lie on the offensive side. But Ricky Ronnie is an offensive mind, so I trust him to find some way to at least have the Monarchs competitive. So they've just sneaked into my top 25 at 25 for me.
Yeah, I mean they're in the top 20 for me. I've got them at 17, maybe a little bit higher than maybe a lot of people would. But yet again, I mean these teams in the top 25, especially top 15 to 25 to me are all kind of similar ratings. This is maybe more of a Ricky Rain thing than anything else. I really think he's a good head coach. I think he's had Old Dominion trending in the right direction. I think what he did last year with Colton Joseph was awesome. I think he can do it again. We really didn't even know, or me personally didn't even really know who Colton was before last season. I think that's a testament to what he was able to do from a development standpoint. So I think that I'm pretty high on Old Dominion. I think we're going to see them start, becoming a new contender in the G6. But obviously this year is kind of going to be it's kind of a toss up with them not having a quarterback like they did. So.
Yeah, and I will say this, the quarterback that they had play in the bowl game did come back, and he played pretty well in the bowl game. It's just a matter of, was that a Winsanity run, or is that something that we should expect in the long term? We'll say this, though, one of the more uniquely shaped stadiums in college football. Their home stance is definitely pretty interesting. But I just think this is a year where we see a little bit of a regression, at least for me, but still I think a good team that's going to get to a bowl game once again, and Ricky Ron will be circling 2027 as a moment where they're trying to get that get back, so to speak.
For sure.
I can see that too. I can see it.
Now, I did get a question earlier in the live stream tonight from the Fried AKC talking about why to hate on Jacksonville State. So that doesn't apply for everybody. Reed loves Jacksonville State. He has them higher than what the consensus is. For me, and I didn't have Jacksonville State ranked in the top 25. For me, it's because they are playing in a conference, which is typically hasn't been a very good conference as of recent. The only team from the CUSA that I had in the top 25 was Western Kentucky. And they checked in at number 19 for me. I think that loss for Cam Cook, their leading rusher in the NCAA, is going to hurt more than what is led to believe, especially when you're a run-oriented offense. And at times you were a little bit one-dimensional in terms of being able to pass the football. That was an interesting challenge, which if there was a competent passing offense that complemented that running game that was really good, instead of seeing Kennesaw State as your Conference USA champions, probably would have seen Jacksonville State hoist that trophy yet again and talking about them as a two-time defending CUSA champ. But that's really what I'm looking at in terms of his Jacksonville State team. I think that loss is going to hurt them more than what's led to be. I still think that they'll be in a position to compete for the CUSA title this year, though.
I totally agree. I've got them ranked. I mean, they're in my top 25. They're sitting they're not far off of this estimate. I got them sitting at 23. But I mean, I do agree with a lot of what you said, Jake. Obviously, I'm incredibly high on Cam. I mean, you guys have probably seen what I've been saying about him. I've got him, as one of my better running backs in all of the FBS right now. I think he was incredible for them last year. I think that's going to be a huge hit. They obviously relied on him a lot. I do think that they were a run-heavy offense. I don't know if that was because they just struggled to pass so much or if it was because they had such a stud back there. It's kind of just like, hey, we've got somebody that's better than everybody else. Let's just hand him the ball over and over again, So it is going to affect them, but I still think that this is a good program. I still think that they've got a lot going for them. Love Charles Kelly. I think he did a great job last year. This is kind of another, I like the staff. So I have to put him in my top 25 for Jacksonville State. So.
Yeah, and to piggyback off the AT's point about the staff, they did lose their offensive coordinator to Maryland. Taylor Housewright is the new offensive coordinator entering his first year at the position. I think they personally take a bigger shot at the pass game than the run game. They do return 4 offensive linemen, so that's a positive. But they bring in 2 transfer receivers, Darius Cannon and Ronell Johnson. I think they take a bigger approach in the passing game. Did Caden Creel improve in his passing game? Time will tell, but I think they try to take that bigger approach. Return multiple starters from the defense last season. I think that's huge. I have Jack State at 16, competing for a potential spot in the CUSA title.
Yeah, and I think Jacksonville State, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I have them as a CUSA championship participant. I have them in my CUSA championship playing against a Western Kentucky. It also just goes back to, listen, the CUSA is not on the same level as a Pac-12 and not on the same level as the American or, at times, like the Sun Belt has been, playing some pretty good ball too. I mean, they just sent a team to the college football playoff. So it's kind of on like the same thing that I said about the MAC earlier tonight. Like, you're one of the best teams in your conference, but what does that even mean? So to speak, right? Which, I mean, Louisiana Tech might be a top tier team if they were still in the CUSA. Now if they're in the Sun Belt, they're kind of a middle of the pack team in the Sun Belt. So that's just kind of what I'm looking at when comparing these conferences holistically, which, speaking of the Sun Belt, and I was surprised that they were this low. 23, the Troy Trojans, decent returning production. They were just playing in the Sun Belt title game, actually gave James Madison a run for their money in spite of playing that championship game on the road. I actually think Troy is good enough to get back to the Sun Belt title game. I think we see a rematch between James Madison and Troy. So I was a little surprised, though, to see them at down at 23. I had them in my top 20 personally.
Yeah, I've got them at 22. I mean, I'm pretty close here. I think Gerard Parker, I think what he did, turning him around from 2024 to 2025 was awesome. They do return a lot of production. I think that it's a good football team, but not one of the best in the G6. I think, they're in my top 25, so I guess they are one of the best in G6, just not in the top 10 or 15 for me. They're a good program. I think that they'll compete, but I don't see them, making a playoff run or being in the top of this G6 team here. So,
yeah, big overturn, namely on the offensive side of the ball. I mean, they have basically no receivers that got meaningful game time for them last year. That's going to be huge. Quarterback battle, running backs could be a question mark. Jordan Lovett is back at the position, but he wasn't anything outstanding. So a lot of question marks for Troy. They're still at 23 for me, solely because of AT's point. I think Gerard Parker has done a great job in building what he has at Troy. They returned 3 stars on the offensive line, so that's a positive. But I mean, Troy, I think definitely has an uphill climb, but I still think they are competitive enough to be in that Sun Belt title game for sure, at least in the conversation at a minimum.
Yeah, I mean, I can see them in that title game for sure. But I think they're going to surprise some people, though. I mean, this was a Troy football team last year where we saw them go toe to toe with Clemson, and I know that Clemson didn't have the type of season that they wanted to have. But I mean, Troy to go on the road in Death Valley and give a decent Power 4 team a 4-quarter game. I mean, that speaks volumes to how good this program is. And this is more me trusting the program. I think this is one of the best programs in the Sun Belt, and I think that continues to shine in spite of some of the issues that you were talking about, where they got to replace some players at key positions.
Yeah,
True.
I agree.
Which, speaking of some quality football programs, we go back to number 24, and that's the Army Black Knights. And listen, I really like this Army football team. Well, I won't say I love them because I didn't have them in my top 15, but I definitely like them. They checked in at number 16 for me. And a lot of that is really the same reasons why I talked about Navy earlier tonight. You know, they benefit from the fact that they don't have to worry about their roster being poached like in the transfer portal. And while this team had a slower start last year, I mean, the Tarleton State loss before we knew what Tarleton State football was all about, that looked a little rough. I mean, they still also found a way to beat Kansas State on the road, which is a nice victory for them. And as the year went on, they continued to get better. And Army, for me, is one of those teams I think is going to surprise a lot of people. I think they're playing the American title game this year.
Oh, wow. That would be impressive to me. I don't have them ranked. They would be right outside for me, right? 26 to 30 in that range. I agree with a lot of what you said, but yeah, I'd be very surprised if they made it to conference title there at the end of the year.
Yeah, I also don't have them ranked, but they would be just on the edge for me. Return 4 offensive linemen. Cale Helms is back at quarterback. I mean, running back and linebacker are the 2 question marks for me. They have major overturn at both those positions, but classic Army, like Navy, they run a triple option style offense. So they're going to be able to backfill the running back position. Don't have question marks there. Linebacker is my biggest question mark on this football team. So a big enough question mark to have them just on the edge, but they would be in that next 5 off for me personally.
Yeah, for sure. And then rounding out your top 25 for the College Football Red Zone Group G6 post-spring top 25. We got the Temple Owls checking in at number 25, so they get in on the back end. I think Temple is another team that I think is going to be improved compared to last year. Almost made a bowl game last year. Casey Keeler immediately leaving his impact on the program. Don't know if it's going to reflect in the overall record, but I do think that Temple is going to be one of those teams that is going to be difficult to deal with, especially when you get into conference play.
Are you not worried? Are you not worried about them not having a quarterback that's taken a snap for that program?
Not necessarily, because I think Casey Keeler is a gifted offensive mind overall. We've seen this happen at Sam Houston when he led the transition for Sam Houston from the FCS ranks up to the FBS, where in just their second season as an FBS program, leading them to a 10-win season, and you can immediately see the difference. I mean, this Temple football team before Casey Keeler got here, this was a complete disaster. It was a complete embarrassment to the greater Philadelphia area. It is a complete afterthought in Philadelphia sports, period. You know, who was talking about Temple football prior to last year, and now there's some life. It's because of Casey Keeler, and you want to understand the impact that he has as a coach. Look at Sam Houston now.
Yeah. And look, I like Casey Keeler a lot. They're ranked for me pretty high, you know, in my top 15. But I agree with what you were saying there, Reed. Question for you though, Reed, as a Penn State guy, because they brought over a Penn State quarterback,
Jackson Smollett.
What do we know about him?
He was a pretty solidly rated recruit out of high school. I can't remember if he was a 4-star or a high 3-star, but he was a solidly rated quarterback out of high school. I think he has a lot of upside. Obviously didn't get any playing time last year, but I think he transfers to Temple solely thinking he has the capability of being a starting level quarterback at the FBS level. So I mean, I'm happy he's going to get his opportunity. It's just as long as he lays an egg week 2, that's all I care about.
That's all that matters. Yeah, they bring him in. They bring in a Johnny Shepard from Washington State as well. So I mean, I think they'll have somebody that can play at quarterback. I like Casey a lot. So this is a coaching thing for me. I think he's done a great job at Temple, and I think they're trending in the right direction. One of my favorite teams going into next year is the G6. So
for sure.
All right, so rounding out the the top 25, there was a few teams that did end up missing. Appalachian State, I was surprising amount of love. They actually were very close to cracking this top 25. Maybe a little bit of Dow Loggins love. They did get the bowl game, so they had some extra spring practices. Liberty was also on there as well. One of the better programs in the CUSA. Liberty did almost crack this top 25 too, and then Clay Heldon's Georgia Southern squad did end up being in that just miss category. They were a few points short from getting in, but that's a solid football team that maybe it won't show in the record because they got a tough schedule for Sunbelt standards, but that's one of the better teams in that conference too, in my opinion. So that's going to round out this top 25, as well as some teams that we had just missed. Gentlemen, any final thoughts before maybe we get a little bit into this week number 0 stuff?
Did everything I could for App State to get in the top 25. So, I mean, super high on them.
Kind of a surprising omission, at least for me. Kind of surprised none of us had Kennesaw State, even in the just miss at a minimum. I think Kennesaw State is worthy of being ranked. I think they're going to be a very competitive team next season, personally.
Yeah, and I know the majority of the group, I think when we were voting on this, did have Kennesaw State in that top 25. There was someone that had them as high as 21. But I think for me, at least, I am a little bit more worried about all those losses that they took in the portal. I mean, it's just the life of the G5. I think they'll be fine, and I think they'll be in the conversation to win the CUSA. But I could see them taking a step back, and how they got demolished by Western Michigan in the bowl game. That concerns me a little bit too. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, for sure. I get that.
All right. So with that being said, the other thing that I really wanted to get into here tonight was we're in the month of May right now. So for those of you that aren't as familiar with the college football calendar, sometime in the month of May, we start to see game times being released for the first few weeks of the season. So in honor of that we're going to get some game times sometime this month in terms of when some of these early season games are going to kick off. Just kind of want to dive into some game, really each of these games, and just really talk about how interested in are versus how uninterested we are of some of these games. Although we love college football, some games are just simply bigger than others at the end of the day. Normally I would have a graphic, but that particular graphic is having technical difficulties. So that will come out tomorrow, instead, because I'm not worried about trying to do that while live on air. We just don't have the time of that or the budget. That'll be somebody else doing it from an undisclosed location in the morning. But
we could get the budget, any donators or any sponsors.
If anyone is watching, potentially, we also potentially might be going to a handful of games this fall. If someone by chance, sees this and likes the content, they could get more of it.
I'm just saying, there's a good chance, good ad space right here, right here.
Yeah, lots of room for ads for sure.
Brought to you by.
I got a whole wall right here. I mean, we could put something up.
Yeah,
yeah. I don't have as much space as these guys, but I certainly definitely have some space for ads as well. But
I could put Bet MGM right there and talk about how bad it is that Brendan Thorsby is gambling. I mean, it could easily happen. So.
Get the cardboard cutout, put it right behind you.
Oh my goodness! So just pull that up on the big screen.
Sorsby on one side, Mateer on the other side. There we go.
What do we want?
FanDuel sponsor right in between them, right?
Yeah, that's the real question that we have to ask here tonight. Do we want the Sorsby spread more, or do we want the Mateer money line? That's really the $1 million question at the end of the day. But we for this being week number 0, and this always being considered the appetizer of college football season, because most of these teams don't start until week 1. there's certainly a decent catalog of games that we get to work with, right? I mean, we get 8 games total that we get to have. So, just real quickly, wanted to gather your thoughts in terms of how highly you view these games, or how, I guess, uninterested compared to some of the other games that we're going to get. So for me, the first game that I wanted to jump into in terms of how you guys are feeling about this particular game. So the game that I'm least interested in of all these games that are happening in week 0 is New Mexico State and Florida State. I think that this game is going to be a blowout first and foremost. And not only that, I'm not even fully convinced that Florida State is going to be good this year. I think there's a chance that Florida State can miss a bowl game and Mike Norvell can get fired. I certainly am not a very high believer in New Mexico State. I mean, they didn't even make our top 25 graphic. They weren't even in the just missed. So yep. I think Florida State should be a bowl team. I think they're going to be better than what they were the last couple of years. But at the same time, there's definitely a world where Florida State can absolutely miss a bowl game and Mike Norvell is fired.
They definitely have to get off on a good foot this season, without a doubt. If they don't win this game by a minimum of 30, then I'm scared for them, actually.
Yeah, Mike Norvell is probably in one of the hottest seats in all of college football right now. So, this one's a little bit more exciting to me than one of the other games, simply of the fact that Florida State could come out here and lay a complete egg, and we could see them lose and Mike Norvell get fired week 0. It could happen. There's a world where that does happen, but
yeah, and New Mexico State, they have experience in going in hostile environments. Remember what happened to Auburn a couple of years ago. New Mexico State not only beating them,
Diego Pavia.
Yeah, BTA experience. So, I mean, if they have the second coming of Diego Pavia, but I mean, New Mexico State, they just haven't been the same since Jerry Crow left to be an assistant at Vanderbilt. And like Tony Sanchez still picking up the pieces here a few years later. But yeah, imagine that, thinking to yourself after winning the ACC, if you're Mike Norvell, asking 2 years from now, you're going to be on the hot seat. You will have called people crazy, but yet here we are.
The craziest thing about that is you literally can see it happen live when that video of him when they don't get announced for the playoff, and he's like sitting there with his whole team. You literally can see their whole program go up in shambles in one moment. It's insane. So because ever since then it's been downhill for them. So
yeah, and that's why for me, like, it's the game that I'm least interested in, like, for week 0 as of right now. But a game that I think is going to have a little bit more interest for me, though, is San Jose State and USC. Still think it's going to be a blowout. I still think it's going to be a non-competitive game. But at least for me, I am more intrigued by USC because if USC wants to have some aspirations and be competitive in the Big Ten and try to get to the college football playoff for the first time under Lincoln Riley, then USC, they're going to have to be coming out firing on all cylinders. So that one has a little bit more intrigue. And this is mainly because of USC, though.
Yeah, I think they have to get off on a good foot. Got to start the season with a good base. And this is the perfect opponent for USC to, have an extra spring game, essentially, another fall scrimmage against little brother San Jose State. So it's going to be good for USC to get their feet up under them and start the season 1-0.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not super excited about this game. I think it'll be a blowout. I don't think that San Jose stands a chance. So we'll see, though. It'd be exciting to watch a competitive game. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, but the good news is there are only a couple of games in week 0 that I think are going to be blowouts. I think the other games that we're going to have are going to be more competitive moving forward. Like Hawaii and Stanford, for example, it comes in as my 6th most interesting game personally. But at the same time, I look at that Hawaii game. I mean, we have Hawaii in our top 15, and we think that Stanford is going to be a little bit better, but we have some questions about their head coach as well. I think this is one of those interesting games where Stanford has to show up to play. I think it's going to be a 4-quarter game, and I'm excited to see Micah Awahata try to go to work against a power conference team.
Yeah, I think so too. I think Stanford's obviously got to get off on the right foot. They've kind of struggled here in late, so want to see them get back to where they were a couple years ago, or several years ago, I should say. And so, yeah, it'd be exciting to watch them come and win this game pretty dominantly. But I think that they'll have a handful in Hawaii. So
sneaky game for week 0. I mean, to your point, Jake, Stanford cannot just walk into this game and think that Hawaii's just gonna, bow out. Stanford definitely has to bring their best performance in week 0. Matchup to watch: Hawaii's offense against Stanford's defense. Alahado against he tore him up in week 0 last year, so was able to get a walk-off field goal win. How does Stanford respond? Revenge on the mind, possibly. So that's the main matchup in this game at week 0. Alahado versus that Stanford defense for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one I'm very excited about. Does Stanford get the get back, or does Hawaii end up beating Stanford 2 years in a row? That's going to be that'll be something to certainly watch moving forward. But it might not even be as exciting as the game that's probably going to start things off, the game in Dublin, Ireland. North Carolina and TCU. I mean, North Carolina, you really couldn't ask for any more of a nightmare season between not just what happened on the field, but also with what was going on off the field as well, with the Bill Belichick's girlfriend, for example. TCU just lost their quarterback though in Josh Hoover, so I think this being the first game of the year, most likely this one has some intriguing as well. I think it's going to be closer than I think the last time we saw these two teams play. That's for sure.
Hey, look, man, Sonny Dykes said losing Josh Hoover was a good thing. He was tired of him throwing picks. So I don't know. They want to make it seem like it's a good thing up there. I think that it was tough. I think Josh Hoover's going to go roll at Indiana. But, this is going to be a good game. I want to see Bill Belichick get back to the limelight. It's tough. It is tough to watch somebody that was so legendary have such a fall that he's had here. But, it's going to be a good game. I'm excited about it. I'm kind of on the – I don't necessarily like the international games. I know that I might be in the minority here, but I think we got a lot of great campuses that we should be playing these games on. So, but still love watching good football, and I think this is going to be a good football game. So,
ditto to AT's point. I wish this was happening in the Fort Worth area at TCU because of it happening at UNC last year. Anyway, quarterback matchup in this game: Taron Dickens, Jaden Craig. I think the quarterbacks are going to come out slinging in this matchup. Even though it is in Dublin, could be a slow start week 0 across the pond. I think these two quarterbacks are going to light it up. Taron Dickens, Jaden Craig, sneaky, maybe the best quarterback matchup of the weekend.
Yeah. And I will say this about like Sonny Dykes. I feel like that talk about Josh Hoover, that felt a little bit like a coping mechanism for losing his starting quarterback of multiple years. To another program, especially with how Kirk Cernetti's got it rolling. I mean, he's been in Power College football for 5 minutes. He has more national titles than Sonny Dykes. Very curious, and I know Philly J brought it up too. Taron Dickens, man, I cannot believe that guy stayed in the transfer portal as long as he did. I think he had some academic issues, which led to him staying in the transfer portal as long as he did. I think that was what I was told when we were doing the ACC preview. But man, watch his West Carolina work. It is truly a thing of beauty. He's going to be so good this year.
Yeah, Bobby Petrino, first-year coordinator there too.
Yeah, absolutely. We also get our fair share of some FBS debuts. Both of the FCS teams are going to make their debuts in week number 0 as well. Sacramento State's opening up with obviously a conference opponent that makes a lot of sense to most of college football right now in Eastern Michigan. Traveling across the country to Ypsilanti, and we're going to see what Sacramento State football is going to be all about this year. And led by a former backup dancer of MC Hammer. I mean, you literally can't make this up.
You can't. We love college football, right? But yeah, I'm pumped for these. I'm pumped for the newbies on the street. Like I said earlier, I couldn't rate them because we don't know them yet. Excited to get to know them. Can't wait to watch some football for some new guys. Love some fresh blood in the FBS. So super, super pumped we get them on week 0. That I'll give the NCAA this. That was scheduling genius. That's they hit on rare times they do good. That was a dub for them. That was great scheduling on the new, get the new guys in, get them in there early. So,
Jake, what did you title the new FCS Newcomer Bowl or something?
Yeah, so while that's not happening in week number 0, we do have the FBS Debut Bowl, which captured the hearts and minds of mostly Sacramento State fans at heart, including the president of the university who saw that tweet and liked that tweet as well. So if you use that trademark, if Mr. President, if you could fly us out to Sacramento, California, never been to the state, that would be great. But for now, they got to deal with Chris Creighton and that Eastern Michigan football team, which I think that's a solid squad. And Chris Creighton, I think, is one of the best coaches in the MAC. So it's a intriguing matchup between someone that has a ton of experience as a head coach and someone that's literally never been a head coach at any level.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
If it comes down to a breakdance, though, Sacramento State is winning by a country mile. But not the only one that's making a debut, though. We also get Jacksonville State and North Dakota State as well. I saw it in terms of North Dakota State top 10. You know, what were we missing? I'm gonna say this about North Dakota State. This is not your typical FCS team making the jump. And we've seen this success, right? With not only at Jacksonville State, but they're ironically playing up against, but also with James Madison and more recently in Missouri State and Delaware coming in year one and having that immediate success as well. But North Dakota State is a different animal, man. I think this Jacksonville State team is they're going to have their hands full when they go up to Fargo, North Dakota for this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is going to be a good football game. We're going to get a good feel on how good NDSU is. How do they enter into the FBS, and then we're also going to get to understand how good Jacksonville State is. If they go get blown out, then maybe we shouldn't have had them in the top 25. Or on both ends, if either of these teams get blown out, then I'll kind of it'll be an eye opener for me. I think this should be a competitive game. You know, I think these are two teams that should compete with each other. So
I just can't wait for the world to see the Fargo Dome.
Fargo Dome.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see really in the major college football world pay attention to Fargo Dome because we've seen them host College Game Day a couple of times, but we never. Most folks haven't seen what kind of environment that North Dakota State has on a weekly basis when they have home games. And yes, the home attendance has declined a little bit over the past few years, but that was because their fans were bored because they were winning so much. They're not going to be bored anymore because they're going to have some new opponents and, being reunited with Jacksonville State. That's a quality CUSA program as well. Measuring stick game between the CUSA and Mountain West. Yeah. So I think that's going to have some implications.
Have to do a Redzone live in the Fargo Dome before it's all said and done.
Yeah, I would. It's on the bucket list. I've never been to the state of North Dakota, period. Let alone North Dakota State. We'll have to go in September, though. November might be a different conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a Southern guy, so I like the let's get out there as early as we can, basically.
Yeah. So late August only it is. So.
exactly. No.
But I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on this. I think this game is going to be the best game of the week. It's Memphis and UNLV. I personally have this as a top 10 matchup when it comes to the G6 top 25 we just did. But I mean, consensus for all five of us, some of us aren't on tonight. I mean, it's a top 5 matchup. I think this might be the best game of the week.
Yeah, this is going to be one of the best games in all of the G6. It really is. I mean, for all season. I mean, I think we're talking about this game if it's in the middle of the year or whenever it is. Everybody that pays attention to college football and cares about the G6 wants to watch these two teams go together. Like you said, this is a top 10 rating team or 2 top 10 teams for us. So 2 of the best teams we think in the conference. Why would we not want to sit down and watch them play against each other? This is going to be awesome. So.
Yeah, this is a good measuring stick game for the G6 as a whole. Memphis, Charles Huff, new era. UNLV, Jackson Arnold, potentially at the helm. Alex Orji, who knows at quarterback. Dan Mullen still has revenge on his mind from the Florida days. So UNLV, Memphis is, I think it's clear cut. This is the best game of the weekend, along with another game we might touch on. But Memphis, UNLV, no matter what, we'll be watching that game. No matter what.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. And the final game that we haven't really touched on is North Carolina State and Virginia. I mean, for those of you that didn't watch that game in very early in the season, and it was somehow a non-conference matchup, I mean, that was sneakily one of the best games of that week. I mean, that game was a constant shootout, and it turned out to be a game that happened between two teams that ended up being good football teams. I mean, Virginia made it to the ACC title game last year, and then North Carolina State, they didn't go as far, obviously, but they were a bowl team too. And so I'm looking at these two teams. They both have some offensive weapons. I think we're going to see some fireworks. The only thing that I don't love about this game is that this happening in Brazil. Why are we in Brazil for a college football game? Someone roll me that back, man.
Because they want to grow the game. They want to make it an international brand. I could look up some Chat GPT consulting words and fill in the blank, and that would answer your question there. Because that's why it's a business thing. It's the same reason they want to take it to a 2014 playoff. You know, it's all that stuff. It's they're turning our sport into a business. So not a fan personally, but
yeah, because that's a way to grow the game. Let's show basically a semi-professional sport to the professional sport that has been there for now 2 years straight. You know,
right. And let's take Virginia and NC State and do that. Not two of the best teams. You're not even going to get the best football in the country. You're going to get Virginia and North Carolina State. So
you're absolutely right. We need to send UMass and ULM to Brazil right away.
Exactly.
We talk about chaos. You know, if we want some chaos, you know, we need to send 2 chaos teams. You know, and I would be remiss if we didn't have a G6 show and we didn't have a ULM mention. I mean, what are we doing here, gentlemen? So, that's the kind of energy that we need to bring down to Brazil. But I mean, I'm still going to be pretty pumped about this game. I mean, like CJ Bailey is an absolute incredible weapon. Whoever wins that starting job for Virginia, whether it's the former Missouri quarterback or the former Pitt quarterback, both of their names, for whatever reason, I'm having a brain fart. They're going to be pretty good for this Virginia football team. So excited for it, and I'm sure it's going to be a barn burner.
Yeah, it's the thing that sucks about these away games, these overseas games, is they're always incredibly slow because it's week 0. A lot of teams filling each other out, and you can tell the guys have been traveling. You can tell they haven't really been prepping. So you know those first week games are always a little rough. These international games always seem really rough to me. It seems like a lot of edges need to be worked out. So we'll see what happens. It's normally sloppy football. So
question for you too, because I actually don't know. That's hilarious. Is this considered a conference game, or is this another non-conference game between 2 conference opponents?
All right, so that is a really good question. So for now, it is considered a conference game. I could go into a rant about how the ACC schedule is, because it's the only conference that does this, and I hate it. But we're already running out 2 hours, so I'm going to save that rant for another day. It's some egregious stuff. If you pay really close attention to our conference schedule, I can't believe it. But hey, for now, we're going to get ready to sign off. Hey, thank you guys so much. You spent almost 2 hours spending time with us talking G6 football. And, you know, as Kevin Durant would always said before he accepted his first MVP, he looked at his mom and said, "You're the real MVP." And if you're sitting here tonight and you're watching this show at about the 2 hour mark, you're Kevin Durant's mom. You're the real MVP. So, hey, I hope you guys are all out there having a good night. Shout out to Reed, being able to join on the show tonight. And shout out to AT as well. Always love both of these guys coming on the show here. But for now, this is Jake from College Football Red Zone signing off. Hoping you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.